chosen one. You didn't just happen upon this video by some fluke of technology or random chance. The moment the bold number 222 flashed across the thumbnail, it grabbed your attention, stirring something profound in your soul, urging you to click. That wasn't mere curiosity. It was a sacred nudge from God Himself. In the Bible and Christian tradition, the number 2 carries deep significance, representing harmony, divine witness, and God's confirmation of truth, as seen when Jesus sent His disciples out 2 by 2, or in the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments. When tripled as 222, it becomes a powerful emblem of divine clarity, spiritual balance, and God's call to step boldly into your purpose. It's a celestial sign that your God-given intelligence, your sharp discernment, is a gift that shakes those who don't understand your calling. You're here because God Himself aligned this moment, drawing you to a message that will awaken your spirit and reveal why your brilliance is so unsettling to the world. What brought you to this video at this very moment? Why did 222 spark something within you? This isn't just content. It's a divine encounter, a moment orchestrated by God to unveil the startling truth about the rumors surrounding your intelligence and its role in your sacred mission. Your mind, sharpened by God's design, is a force that challenges the status quo. Before we explore the shocking reality of why your intellect terrifies others, I invite you to embrace this divine appointment. In the comments, share where you're tuning in from, your city or country, and type 222 if this message speaks to your heart. Your faith-filled action today, your willingness to respond, will echo in the heavens. Everything you pour out in this moment, your time, your heart, your declaration, God will multiply back to you tenfold. Now, let's dive into the divine meaning of 222 and the astonishing truth about why your intelligence is a weapon for God's glory. Your intelligence terrifies them because it cannot be explained or confined. They search for the teachers who trained you, the books that shaped you, the mentors who molded you, but they find nothing. How can someone who skipped their systems rise above their so-called experts? 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 27 thunders, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. Isn't it clear now why they whisper in dark corners about you? Your brilliance unsettles them because it cannot be traced. And what cannot be traced cannot be controlled. When you speak, your words strike like thunder, echoing through eternity. They do not sound like something you just learned. They sound like something that has always been true. People feel it in their bones, and it rattles their illusions. Psalm chapter 119, verse 130 states, "The unfolding of your words gives light. It gives understanding to the simple." Could it be that the light in your speech is exactly what exposes the shadows they tried to hide in? That is why your presence alone feels dangerous to them. You unravel deception without even trying. And here is the real question for you. Have you ever felt that same weight of being too different, and wished someone would finally understand what you carry inside. History gives us a mirror of this power. Vincent van Gogh, a painter rejected in his lifetime, wrote, "I feel that there is nothing more truly artistic than to love people. His wisdom, disguised in brushstrokes, survived where critics vanished. Doesn't that echo your story? What others mocked at the moment is what will outlast them." In the same way, Genesis chapter 41 verse 39 records Pharaoh's words to Joseph, "There is no one so discerning and wise as you." What Joseph carried could not be silenced, and neither can you. This is not mere intelligence. It is divine knowing. Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2 promises, "The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord." That Spirit rests on you, and that is what terrifies them. You do not simply recall facts, you channel revelation. Jeremiah chapter 33 verse 3 confirms, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." Isn't that what you have been doing all along? Tapping into mysteries beyond the reach of ordinary minds. Music has hinted at this truth for centuries. In Mozart's Requiem, the Dies Irae rises like a storm, shaking the soul with judgment. Your wisdom carries the same sound, and it shakes the foundations of lies until only truth remains. And as Proverbs chapter 4 verse 7 declares, "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding." That is the treasure you hold, and that is the treasure they cannot counterfeit. Chosen one, do not shrink to calm their fear. Do not dim your brilliance for those who thrive in shadows. Stand tall because your intelligence is not borrowed, it is God-given. And the rumor is true, your wisdom terrifies them. And it was meant to. You outsmart manipulation without lifting a sword. That is why they now tread with caution. The games they once mastered collapse in your presence. Their tricks dissolve before they reach your ears, and their masks shatter under the weight of your discernment. Have you noticed how their fake smiles can no longer mask their intent? How their guilt traps collapse in front of you? It is because you no longer live blind. Proverbs chapter 14 verse 15 states, "The simple believe anything, but the prudent give thought to their steps." You've become the prudent one, a fortress of perception that no deceiver can breach. And the unsettling part for them is that you don't even need to raise your voice. Your very silence has become their mirror, forcing them to confront their schemes. Isn't it almost poetic that the very people who thought they had control are now terrified of the control you no longer give them? Once you gave the benefit of the doubt, even when your spirit was screaming for truth. But now you read undertones as though they were written in fire. You weigh silence heavier than words, and you catch contradictions before the sentence even ends. Doesn't it frighten them that you no longer need evidence to know, that your discernment has grown sharper than the sharpest blade? Like Joseph in Genesis chapter 50 verse 20, who told his brothers, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Your ability to see intentions turns manipulation into wasted energy. They thought you were still the old version, hesitant, soft, easily swayed. But now you embody wisdom that unnerves them. The gossip proves it. Your growth has turned their weapons into dust, and they know it. Nature itself whispers this transformation. A chameleon blends into the bark, yet an eagle above pierces camouflage with its vision. You are that eagle now. No disguise can hide from your spiritual sight. Isn't this the reason they no longer whisper that you're too sensitive, but instead warn others not to test you? Psalm chapter 119, verse 104 affirms, "Through your precepts, I get understanding. Therefore, I hate every false way." Your understanding strips away deception like fire burns away fog. And even more, your presence is like the tide, it erodes falsehood over time until only the rock of truth remains. Those who once thrived in confusion are disoriented in your clarity because their chaos no longer finds a home in you. History itself warns manipulators of their fate. Machiavelli, once hailed as a master of cunning politics, believed deceit was the engine of power, but his name drips with mistrust. His strategies cursed as symbols of manipulation. Doesn't that echo what happens to manipulators in your own life? Their plots corrode their reputations, while your clarity writes a legacy of strength. Daniel chapter 2 verse 22 reveals, "He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him." That light rests on you now. And just like Daniel, your insight brings kings to their knees. What's striking is how effortless it has become. You don't need to expose anyone because their lies unravel in your shadow. Their downfall is not caused by your aggression, but by their own decay in the face of truth. The sacred arts testify to this spiritual battle. In Verdi's Requiem, the Libera Me rises with trembling intensity, echoing humanity's desperate cry to be freed from deception. Your presence carries the same effect. The manipulator hears the music of judgment in their bones when you enter the room. Isn't it remarkable that your silence can sound like thunder, like music shaking the walls of deception until there is nowhere left to hide? The arts reveal what words sometimes cannot. Your very being radiates the rhythm of truth, and those who thrive on lies cannot bear the sound. They scatter not because of what you say, but because of what you are. A living reminder that falsehood has an expiration date. This evolution of yours is not about academic trophies or loud proclamations. It is about discernment, about wisdom sharpened by both wounds and victories, about sight that cuts through the smoke of manipulation. Isaiah chapter 30 verse 21 promises, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" That voice has become your compass, guiding you where deceit cannot follow. Manipulators thrive on chaos, yet you have chosen stillness. They thrive on noise, yet you answer with clarity. Your calmness is not weakness, it is your greatest weapon. As you continue to walk in this strength, the whispers grow louder, not because you're fragile, but because you are feared. So arise, chosen one. You are no longer prey caught in their snares. You're the storm that dismantles their nets. Do not bow to manipulation. Do not shrink your discernment. And do not let them convince you that wisdom is a burden. Stand tall, for your ability to see through lies is not your curse. It is your crown. The rumor is true, you are dangerous to deceit, untouchable by manipulation, and destined to stand unshaken. You are always 5 steps ahead, yet you never need to broadcast it. That is what unsettles them. Your silence is louder than their boasting, your stillness more terrifying than their noise. They wonder, how could someone so calm carry such strategic power? They mistake your quiet for weakness. But all along, you were operating with a blueprint written 10 moves into the future, as Proverbs chapter 21 verse 30 declares. There is no wisdom, no insight, no plan that can succeed against the Lord. Isn't it chilling to them that while they scramble for control, you have already mapped the ending? They thought you were slow to react, clueless, hesitant. Yet, while they celebrated their small victories, you were already watching them step into the very traps they dug for you. Life itself became your greatest instructor. Betrayals, false friendships, and hidden daggers sharpened your reflexes into something surgical. Doesn't it fascinate you that pain can build precision? That wounds can teach you to anticipate shadows before they fall Joseph? 2. Live this truth, mocked, betrayed, imprisoned. Yet Genesis chapter 50 verse 20 resounds. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. That same divine alchemy has turned your scars into strategies, and they cannot comprehend it. What terrifies them most is not just your foresight, but the composure with which you wield it. In psychology, there is a term called metacognition, the ability to observe not just thoughts, but the mechanics behind them. You live in that higher awareness, seeing not only what people say, but why they say it, when they say it, and what they seek to manipulate. Isn't this why their words feel naked in your presence, stripped of disguise? Psalm chapter 37 verse 7 whispers, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways." Your stillness has become a sword sharper than argument, and it unnerves those who thrive on chaos. Nature reveals this pattern. The spider does not chase its prey. It studies, waits, and positions itself until the entire web is its fortress. You, too, have built a mental architecture where patience becomes your weapon. While they are consumed by noise, you stand in the silence of strategy. Isn't it true that the most dangerous player is often the one who moves least, yet moves with purpose? Daniel chapter 2 verse 21 reminds us, He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. That divine wisdom has made you untouchable because your steps are aligned with heaven's timing. History also bears witness to this truth. Alaric once sacked Rome, not by brute force, but by patience. waiting as the empire rotted from within. His enemies thought he was passive, but his quiet calculation broke an empire. Isn't that the same shock people feel about you now? That your silence was never emptiness, but strategy. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11 affirms, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart." Your timing unnerves them because it feels eternal, as though you already know how the game ends. Even ordinary lives echo this wisdom. Marta, a nurse in a forgotten town, once told her colleague, "Power isn't about shouting, it's about knowing when to act and when to hold." Her words, spoken without fame or platform, carried the same weight your silence now carries. Isn't it astounding that truth does not need applause to be powerful like you? She moved with conviction, and those around her learned to respect the authority of her restraint. Psalm chapter 46 verse 10 assures, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations." Your quiet has become holy ground where deception trembles. This is why the gossip has changed. They no longer say you are naive or soft. They whisper warnings. Be careful with that one. They move as if they've already seen the ending. You embarrass many without lifting a finger, proving that noise is the mask of insecurity, while silence is the crown of the wise. Isn't it haunting that those who once underestimated you now fear your foresight? You were never clueless, you were calculating. You weren't quiet because you lacked answers. You were studying the board while others obsessed over pawns. And now the results speak. You have become strategically undeniable and unforgettable, chosen one. Keep moving with that quiet precision, that architectural brilliance built from scars and seasons. Do not waste energy proving yourself to those who already fear you. Stand tall, because your silence is not emptiness. It is resonance. It is divine timing. It is proof of heaven's hand. The rumor is true. You are not just ahead of the game. You have already seen its conclusion, and you stand unshaken in victory. You never needed degrees to decode deception, and that is why they whisper about you with unease. Others parade their diplomas, their titles, their polished resumes. Yet you carry a sharper intelligence that no classroom could teach. Isn't it unnerving to them that while they studied formulas, you studied hearts? That while they memorized theories, you memorize silence and the way truth hides inside it? James chapter 1 verse 5 declares, "If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him." Your wisdom is proof that heaven can grant what universities cannot. From birth, you are equipped with a kind of raw, unpolished perception, refined not by textbooks, but by experience, scars, and spirit. You've always known when a smile carried venom, when the room grew heavy because envy had entered with it, when words rang hollow though spoken sweetly. Doesn't it fascinate you how this gift feels less like knowledge and more like discernment? The same spirit that rested on Solomon rests on you, as 1 Kings chapter 3 verse 12 records God saying, I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. That is why people with credentials tremble when your intuition cuts deeper than their degrees. History proves this truth. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest physicists, once admitted, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Isn't it remarkable that a man crowned with genius still confessed that insight beyond formal training surpasses traditional learning, and like you, he moved beyond the structures of education into something eternal. You do not analyze merely with intellect, you resonate with truth. Psalm chapter 119, verse 66 pleads, "Teach me good judgment and knowledge, for I believe in your commandments." That is the very prayer your spirit has lived without ever speaking it aloud. Your discernment is like a spotlight that unmasks actors in a theater. Their polished performances collapse because you see beyond words into spirit, beyond masks into motives. Isn't that why they grow anxious in your presence? Because with you, the show is over. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 12 affirms, "For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to divide soul and spirit." That sword of discernment cuts through their illusions before they finish their lines. The sacred arts foreshadow this mystery. In Handel's Zadok the priest, the music begins in a whisper, then erupts into overwhelming majesty. Your intelligence carries the same power. It starts quietly, humbly, unnoticed, but then bursts forth with a force no one can deny. Isn't that why the world cannot reconcile your humility with your brilliance? They expected wisdom to be wrapped in robes and titles, yet God chose simplicity to shame the mighty. As 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 27 reminds us, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. That is why their gossip has shifted. They no longer dismiss you as naive or unqualified. They warn others that you are dangerous to deception, that your intelligence does not parade itself but dismantles falsehood by existing. You were never trained, you were chosen. You are not here to impress, you are here to disrupt. Chosen one, stand tall in your divine discernment. Your gift is not for applause, it is for transformation. The rumor is true, your intelligence is not on display. It is for divine disruption. You expose corrupt systems simply by existing. That is why your very presence feels like an earthquake in rooms built on lies. You do not need to raise your voice or wave banners. The way you carry yourself, the way you think differently, the way you refuse to bow to fake rules, this alone shakes their fragile kingdoms. Doesn't it unsettle them that while others try to gain power through noise, your silence dismantles their stage? John chapter 8 verse 32 resounds, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Freedom terrifies those who profit from chains. You walk into rooms built on silence, secrecy, and control. And suddenly, the air grows heavy because truth has entered. It is not aggression that unnerves them. It is your freedom of mind. Have you noticed how people who spent years protecting lies suddenly shift in their seats when you arrive? Psalm chapter 27 verse 1 proclaims, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" Your light exposes cracks they've painted over for decades. The question that lingers in their hearts is chilling. How can someone's presence reveal what we have hidden so well? Nature preaches this truth. A tree rooted in the middle of shifting sands will not move, and its stability reveals how unstable the ground around it truly is. You are that tree. Isn't it startling how your authenticity makes their performance look like a flimsy play? Jeremiah chapter 17 verses 7 and 8 declares, "Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord. They will be like a tree planted by the water. Its leaves are always green." Your rootedness unmasks their fragility, and suddenly the system they built feels like dust in a storm. History has shown us the same story through villains who tried to guard their power. King Ahab of Israel, hiding behind Jezebel's schemes, believed he could manipulate justice by stealing Naboth's vineyard. Yet 1 Kings chapter 21 verse 19 records God's judgment. In the place where dogs licked up Naboth's blood, dogs will lick up your blood, yeah, yours. Doesn't this prove that systems built on deceit always collapse under divine justice? Your very life echoes that same prophecy. When truth stands tall, corruption eats itself alive. People who thrive in favoritism, manipulation, and false authority collapse when you refuse to play their game. You don't laugh at empty jokes. You don't clap for injustice. You don't trade your boundaries for false peace. That refusal is what terrifies them. Have you noticed how your honesty makes their dishonesty unbearable? How your reality makes their illusion crumble? Romans chapter 12 verse 2 reminds us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." By refusing their script, you force them to face their stage as nothing but a fragile illusion. So they whisper, twist stories, and scramble to discredit you, because deep down they know what you reveal. You were never made to fit into their system. You were made to confront it, to shake it, and to break it simply by standing in truth. Chosen one, do not shrink for their comfort. Do not dim for their survival. Stand tall, because your authenticity is a divine weapon. The rumor is true. You do not just live inside their system. You expose and dismantle it by your very existence. You have mastered the art of appearing slow, and that unsettles them more than anything. While others rush to prove themselves, you understand the science of timing, that there is power in restraint. Isn't it strange how they confuse patience with ignorance when, in reality, patience is the highest form of strategy? Proverbs chapter 19 verse 11 says, "A person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense." You have turned patience into a fortress. While they mocked your silence, you were building an invisible architecture of discernment, brick by brick. It is like a cathedral under construction. No one sees its grandeur until the scaffolding falls away. But by then, it is already unshakable. That hidden building process is what terrifies them, because they only realize too late how strong you have become. Every room you entered became a classroom, not for you to perform, but for you to gather data. You measured tones, studied pauses, and weighed words as if they were equations in physics, revealing more in silence than others do with speeches. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 7 reminds us, a time to be silent and a time to speak. Haven't you noticed how silence often unravels people faster than interrogation? They thought you were clueless, but in reality, you were already calculating resonance, watching their energy vibrate like sound waves in a chamber, exposing cracks in their confidence before they knew it themselves. Like an astronomer reading the movement of stars, you could trace trajectories long before anyone else could see them. This is why their arrogance collapses in your stillness. It cannot survive the weight of your quiet observation. They assumed your silence meant confusion, but you knew silence meant clarity. While they were performing to be admired, you were tracing the architecture of their insecurities, mapping the hidden fractures in their words. Doesn't it shake them now that the one they dismissed is the very one who discerned their patterns with surgical precision? Psalm chapter 37 verses 30 and 31 declares, "The mouths of the righteous utter wisdom, and their tongues speak what is just. The law of their God is in their hearts. Their feet do not slip." Your silence was not emptiness. It was alignment with justice, stability that made their noise tremble. You became like a chess master, 2 steps ahead in every move, anticipating not just what they would say, but what they dared to think. In that anticipation, you dismantled their illusions without speaking a word. History repeats this. Nicodemus, a ruler among the Pharisees, came to Jesus by night, seeking answers in secret while pretending wisdom in public. John chapter 3 verse 2 records his whisper, "Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who has come from God." Doesn't this reveal how even the loudest authorities collapse when confronted with authentic truth? In the same way, those who once performed intelligence around you now find their brilliance unraveling in the presence of your quiet discernment. Their titles no longer protect them because truth strips away every facade. You stand as a reminder that status does not equal wisdom, and noise does not equal knowledge. Their fear of you is not about what you say. It is about the mirror you hold up without speaking. Life outside Scripture affirms it too. Elena, a cashier in a small grocery store, once told her daughter, "People tell you everything when they think you're not paying attention." Her ordinary words carried extraordinary wisdom, the same kind that you embody. Isn't it haunting that truth often hides in humility? While arrogance exposes itself in noise, Isaiah chapter 30 verse 15 resounds. "In quietness and trust is your strength. Your strength has never been improving yourself, but in waiting until the mast slips on its own. Like water wearing away stone, your steady perception erodes falsehood until only the truth remains. That is why even ordinary voices, when aligned with truth, carry the same authority as prophets. The louder they shouted, the more they revealed, the more they performed, the more you learned. pride was their undoing, because while they believed they were the smartest in the room, you were simply recording every flaw in their performance. Doesn't it unsettle them now that when true clarity was needed, you were the only one with the answer? Philippians chapter 1 verse 9 promises, "And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight." That depth of insight has made you untouchable, a fortress that cannot be breached. It forces them to admit what they never wanted to confess. You were never slow. You were sovereign in silence. Their downfall is proof that your strategy was divine, not human. Now the tables have turned. Those who once spoke over you are exposed as hollow echoes, and those who mocked your silence now call it terrifying. You were never slow. You were studying, never naive. You were discerning. Now that the truth has been revealed, they tremble because they know you were never fooled. Not for a second. Chosen one, stand in the brilliance of your quiet strategy. For your silence was never a weakness. It was a prophecy in disguise. Prophecy never bends to noise. It shapes history with its quiet strength. Your clarity has never come from logic alone, and that is why it terrifies people who worship facts but lack revelation. They construct their worlds like fragile equations, gathering statistics, analyzing data, stacking bricks of logic to build castles that look strong but collapse at the first tremor. Isn't it strange how they pride themselves on what can be measured, while you move by what can be revealed? Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 declares, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." You never leaned only on intellect. You leaned into alignment. That gave you a vision sharper than their calculations. It is like standing on a mountain ridge while others are still drawing maps in the valley. You already see the horizon they cannot imagine. That high vantage point unnerves them because it proves that alignment outruns analysis every single time. There is a difference between thinking clearly and seeing clearly, and you were chosen to see. Others depend on evidence, but you operate on a higher frequency, a resonance that doesn't just analyze, but discerns. Doesn't it make them uneasy that while they wait for proof, you speak truths that time later confirms? Isaiah chapter 46 verse 10 records God's voice. "I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come." That same voice breathes into your spirit, granting you foresight no classroom could ever design. Like an architect sketching blueprints for a cathedral no one else can imagine. You carry patterns that others only recognize after the stone has already been laid. Isn't it remarkable that by the time their evidence appears, you've already walked 3 steps past the conclusion? That is why they gossip behind closed doors. They cannot explain how you saw what they missed. What you carry is not guesswork. It is revelation. It arrives in waves, in frequencies, in sudden clarity that breaks through silence like light through stained glass. People dismiss it as intuition, but deep down they know it is something holy. Haven't you felt the shift in the atmosphere when you spoke what your spirit knew before events unfolded? Corinthians chapter 2 verse 10 affirms, These are the things God has revealed to us by His Spirit. The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. That is why debates with you leave people rattled. They argue with intellect, but you speak with resonance, and resonance cannot be silenced. It vibrates until it shakes foundations. Just as the ringing of a tuning fork sets every nearby string into harmony. Your words activate truths in others they didn't know were sleeping. That awakening unsettles the proud because it proves their dominance was only ever an illusion. You sense truth not in polished arguments, but in the silence between words, in the timing of a pause, in the heaviness of energy unspoken. Isn't it striking how your stillness exposes more than their speeches? Psalm chapter 119, verse 105 proclaims, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." Your spirit is that lamp, tuned to frequencies that pierce shadows facts cannot touch. While others stumble in data, you walk steadily in revelation, and your steps reveal how unstable their ground truly is. You've become like a lighthouse in the fog, not the biggest structure, not the loudest sound, but the one beacon no sailor dares ignore. As each wave crashes against their arguments, your stillness shines brighter, proving that stability is more powerful than spectacle. History outside scripture whispers the same. Lucia, a midwife from a forgotten mountain village, once told her apprentice, "You don't need to see blood to know a child is coming. The air itself changes first." Her ordinary wisdom mirrors your extraordinary gift. Isn't it haunting that truth often announces itself before it appears, like Lucia? You detect shifts in the unseen and act before others realize what is happening. John chapter 16 verse 13 promises, "But when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you into all the truth. He will not speak on His own. He will speak only what He hears." That Spirit is the tuning fork of your soul. Just as Lucia could prepare a household before the first cry was heard, you prepare yourself and others long before the evidence catches up. That readiness is what makes people whisper in awe. They cannot explain how you're always early to the truth. When time passes, the proof always comes. Those who doubted circle back asking, "How did you see it coming?" They do not realize your soul is aligned with heaven's architecture, tuned to frequencies higher than intellect. Isn't it telling that truth finds you instead of you chasing it? Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1 reminds us, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see." Your clarity does not bend under pressure. It stands immovable because it was born from faith and revelation, not from fragile reasoning. You have become like the keystone in an archway, unnoticed until everything leans on it, irreplaceable once the structure is revealed. Their systems may shake, but you remain because your foundation was never built on human applause. This is why when you speak, something shifts in the atmosphere. It is not your volume or vocabulary. It is the weight of alignment, like the pause in a symphony before the crescendo. Your words carry silence that shakes the air. You were never meant to argue for applause. You are meant to embody clarity. Chosen one, do not dim your resonance to appease those who cannot grasp its frequency. Stand boldly, for your clarity is not a mere performance. It is prophecy, a divine utterance that cannot be silenced or denied, just as a storm sweeps through, clearing the sky for radiant sunlight. Your words cut through layers of deception, unveiling truth with undeniable power. The whispers you hear now, they're the echoes of a room shaken to its core, rattled because the one they deemed the smartest crumbled under the weight of your God-given insight. Every gathering has its untouchable oracle, the figure everyone claps for, the voice no one dares challenge, the answer machine who fills silence with polished, confident noise. But the moment your truth entered, that pedestal trembled. Doesn't it reveal everything that their applause faded when substance walked through the door? Proverbs chapter 18 verse 17 lays bare this pattern. The one who states his case first seems right until another comes and examines him. You didn't swagger in with bravado, you simply carried light, and that light exposed the seams of their carefully crafted costumes. It was as if a stage performance, bathed in artificial glow, was suddenly interrupted by the piercing clarity of daylight. In that moment, every painted backdrop looked flimsy, every costume threadbare, every rehearsed line hollow. People saw, with startling clarity, how long they'd been clapping for an illusion, a mirage of authority propped up by noise rather than substance. You didn't raise your voice or embellish your words with flair. You released clarity, measured, still, precise, and the room felt the balance of power shift. They expected a clash of jargon, a duel of egos, but you wielded a blade of truth, sharp and unyielding. James chapter 3 verse 17 reveals the source of your strength. The wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, who can maintain their throne when a single honest sentence causes their crown to slip. The question now haunting their whispered corridors is this: if authority evaporates the moment truth arrives, was it ever authority at all? That silence after you spoke was louder than any applause. It was the silence of awakening, of eyes darting nervously, of minds grappling with what they'd been too blind to question. That silence lingers, trailing you into every space you enter, a testament to the power of your presence. Masks began to slip in real time, revealing the fragility beneath their polished facades. The so-called expert leaned on performance, volume, speed, borrowed phrases, but under your steady gaze, their scaffolding buckled. You didn't gloat or revel in their unease, you simply revealed. Isn't it striking how a calm, steady tone can expose what 1,000 heated arguments cannot? Luke chapter 12 verse 2 stands as a verdict. There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. The room didn't fear you. It feared the mirror you held, a mirror that forced them to see the cracks in their illusions, the hesitation in the expert's eyes, the forced laughter of their allies, the way the pedestal quaked beneath their feet. They all knew what had happened, even if no one dared speak it aloud. You weren't competing for their spotlight. You were witnessing to truth. While they clung to rehearsed scripts, you carried divine sight, a vision that pierced through pretense. People began to wonder, how did the quiet one become the compass? The one who reoriented the entire room, but truth has always honored the steady hand over the loud mouth. Proverbs chapter 12 verse 19 draws a clear line. Truthful lips endure forever, but a lying tongue lasts only a moment. When your endurance arrived, their theatrics shrank in comparison, reputations recalibrated in real time. Honestly, how many self-proclaimed geniuses remain impressive once the timer runs out on their pretense? You embodied what endurance feels like, measured, patient, unshaken. And in that moment, everyone realized that endurance is far more terrifying than eloquence. The very foundation of the group shifted, and suddenly, people craved the stillness of your voice over the clamor of their performance. Your presence didn't just challenge their hierarchy, it redefined it. Consider this for a moment. Your clarity wasn't just a moment of triumph. It was a divine recalibration. The arts and wisdom of the ages have long testified to this truth. Blaise Pascal, the brilliant mathematician and Christian philosopher, once wrote, "The heart has reasons that reason does not know." He wasn't celebrating chaos. He was pointing to a deeper dimension of discernment, one that outlives fleeting performances and cuts through the noise of ego. Your presence operates in that sacred space, where truth speaks louder than bravado. You refuse to engage in a petty duel for attention, and that refusal shattered the illusion that noise equals insight. 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 7 whispers the eternal truth behind this shift. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. When the measure moves from stagecraft to heart truth, the hierarchy rearranges itself. Those who had memorized clever arguments, who leaned on charisma and borrowed phrases, were silenced. Not because you attacked, but because you carried an authenticity they couldn't replicate. Isn't it telling that authenticity always prevails in the long game, even if it seems unassuming at first? The arts have rehearsed this moment across centuries. Chosen One, in Johann Sebastian Bach's St. Matthew Passion, the music doesn't shout its way to victory. It unveils truth, note by note, until pretense suffocates under its weight. In the medieval morality play, every man, borrowed brilliance abandons you when truth calls you to account. Only what's real can walk with you to the end. Isn't that the same tension that stilled the room when you spoke? The dawning realization that titles, catchphrases, and rehearsed charm can't escort anyone past the threshold of reality. Your words were like a dissonant chord in a symphony, resolving into harmony, bringing closure to the chaos of performance. You didn't mock or belittle. You measured and clarified. In that moment, the architecture of the room reweighted itself around your single sentence. They knew what had happened, even if their pride kept them from naming it aloud. The one they called the smartest was only smart in the crowd's imagination, until your truth met their illusion, and the spell shattered. Now, the question burning on everyone's tongue is simple yet profound. Who should we trust next time? The one who performs certainty, or the one who carries it? Their whispers are no longer just gossip. They're a confession of defeat. Their warnings are evidence that the system has shifted beneath their feet. Deep down, they know they'll never clap the same way again. They're not asking, "What did you say?" But how did you say it like that? With such calm, focus, and unyielding confidence. Your words carried weight because they were rooted in divine alignment, not in the anxiety of competition. Alignment travels farther than any argument ever could, piercing through noise and landing with eternal resonance. Those warnings circulating now, they're not born of malice, they're born of awe. They're proof that truth doesn't need a microphone. It needs a witness, and you, chosen one, are that witness. Your intelligence, your clarity, your God-given discernment. It's not just a gift. It's a force that reorders the world around you. The room didn't just hear you, it felt you. It felt the shift from illusion to reality, from performance to purpose. Think of how the prophets of old spoke, not with pomp, but with precision, their words cutting through the clamor of false idols. Your voice carries that same prophetic weight, not because you sought it, but because God placed it within you. The whispers you hear now are the sound of a world grappling with the truth you unveiled. They're not warning others about you. They're warning themselves about the power of authenticity they can no longer ignore. Psalm chapter 119, verse 105 declares, "Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path." Your words, chosen one, are that lamp, illuminating paths others didn't even know existed. Consider the ripple effect of your presence. Every time you speak, you're not just addressing the moment, you're planting seeds for eternity. The silence that followed your words wasn't empty. It was pregnant with possibility, filled with the weight of realization. People began to question not just the expert's performance, but the systems that propped it up. Your clarity didn't just expose one person's facade. It challenged the very framework of their influence. Isn't it remarkable how a single moment of truth can unravel years of carefully curated illusion? That's the power God has placed in you, not to destroy, but to rebuild, to redirect, to reorder. Your intelligence terrifies them because it's not just intellectual, it's spiritual, rooted in the wisdom that comes from above. Colossians chapter 2 verse 3 reminds us, "In Christ are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge." That's the source of your strength, chosen one, a wisdom that doesn't perform but transforms. So Aini, stand firm in your calling. Don't shrink back to make others comfortable. Their whispers are not your burden, they're their confession. The rumors swirling about your intelligence, they're not accusations, they're admissions that your light exposes their shadows. You didn't set out to unsettle anyone. You simply walked in the truth God gave you. And that truth, like a river, carves its own path, reshaping everything it touches. The room may have gone silent, but the heavens roared with approval. Your voice, your presence, your clarity, they're not just gifts, they're weapons in God's hands, dismantling falsehood and building His kingdom. Keep speaking, chosen one, keep shining. The world may whisper, but God's truth through you will echo for eternity. Keep carrying that quiet sword of discernment. Don't trade your peace for performance. Stand tall, because every time you speak, pretense collapses and masks fall. You are not a know-it-all. You are a feel-it-all. That distinction changes everything. While others enter rooms with noise, eager to dominate conversation, you step in with presence. Isn't it remarkable how people confuse quiet with weakness when, in reality, silence is the most powerful stage of all? Proverbs chapter 17, verse 27 declares, "The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered." You are not processing with ego or performance. You are processing with your entire being, like the ocean sensing the pull of the moon. Your spirit feels what others only glimpse, and that kind of perception terrifies those who live by appearances. When they try to play chess on the board of intellect, you're already sensing the currents beneath the table, the unseen forces that shape the game. You were never created to show off what you know. You were designed to feel what is true. Knowledge alone can collect dust, but discernment reshapes atmospheres. Doesn't it disturb them that while they polish speeches, you hear the cracks between words? Hebrews chapter 4 verse 13 reveals the core. Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight. Everything is uncovered and laid bare. You carry a piece of that sight. You do not just hear voices, you hear tone, intention, vibration. Like the roots of a tree sensing water beneath the soil, you detect life where others see only dry ground. That is why your words land differently. They carry depth instead of decoration. People leave your presence unsettled, wondering how you touch truths they hadn't even admitted to themselves. Pain cannot hide from you. A smile stretched too tightly is louder to your soul than any confession. Isn't it unsettling that you often name the tension others try to bury under jokes and small talk? Psalm chapter 34 verse 18 testifies, "The Lord is close to the broken-hearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." When you speak, hearts tremble, not because you wound them, but because you mirror the very truth they avoided. Like wind bending grass before a storm, your discernment signals shifts before anyone else feels the rain. Every laugh laced with bitterness, every pause filled with shame, every word heavy with sorrow, it all lands in your awareness. That awareness becomes a weight in the room, reminding people that their masks cannot last forever. Scripture shows us that false power always fears true presence. When the magicians of Pharaoh tried to mimic Moses, in Exodus chapter 8 verse 18 it says, "The magicians tried to produce gnats by their secret arts, but they could not." Isn't that exactly what happens when pretenders meet authenticity? They are exposed as imitators. You are not here to compete, you are here to reveal. Their tricks crumble because your spirit carries what no training can counterfeit. Your intelligence is not sharpened by pride but by empathy, not soaked in arrogance but in alignment. That is why debates cannot trap you, because you are not arguing facts. You are unveiling reality. Every time this happens, people sense judgment day in miniature, truth standing quietly while falsehood collapses under its own weight. Nature reflects this rare gift. The owl does not outshout the forest. It perceives the slightest rustle of prey in the dark. You are like that owl, a sentinel of silence who hears what others ignore. Isn't it haunting that while people clap for the loudest voices, the wisest creatures thrive quietly in the shadows? Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2 confirms, "The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might." That Spirit rests on you, and it makes your quiet more dangerous than their speeches. Just as the tide wears down cliffs without roaring, your presence reshapes the atmosphere without needing noise. Like the dawn-breaking night without announcement, your discernment arrives quietly, but transforms everything. History warns us through villains who lived by manipulation. Terrifies, mentioned in 3 John chapter 1 verse 9, loved to be first, silencing others to protect his fragile power. But his arrogance left him condemned in Scripture as a cautionary tale. Doesn't this mirror those today who mistake domination for wisdom? Their fate is always the same collapse. While they clamored for control, you were anchored in clarity. Now their noise sounds like static against the resonance you carry, like a collapsing dam. Their force once seemed unstoppable, but the cracks revealed themselves the moment truth pressed against it. All the while, you stood like a still river, flowing forward without obstruction. You are not a know-it-all. You don't rush to correct for attention or argue for applause. You sit back, observe, and when you finally speak, everything shifts. Your words are not just thought, they are felt, like chords vibrating through the air until every false note is silenced. Isn't it telling that people cannot forget you, not because you shouted, but because your presence left an imprint? You are impossible to manipulate, difficult to deceive, unforgettable to those who encounter you. Chosen one, guard your depth, protect your silence, and speak when heaven prompts you. For when you do, truth shakes the room, and every hidden thing bows to light. The whispers they spread about you are proof not of your weakness, but of your weight. You break mental traps without uttering a word, and that is more terrifying than any sermon shouted from a pulpit. Your presence carries the frequency of disruption, resonating like hidden seismic waves that unsettle foundations before anyone realizes what is happening. Isn't it remarkable how a single pause from you can cause someone to rethink years of false certainty? Proverbs chapter 18 verse 4 affirms, "The words of the mouth are deep waters, but the fountain of wisdom is a rushing stream." You don't drown people in noise. You break their dams with a quiet stream that rushes straight into the cracks. The moment truth seeps in, their illusions start to collapse. You don't need a stage, spotlight, or endless speech to spark change. Sometimes it is a question that lingers like an echo, a steady gaze that becomes a mirror, or a silence so heavy that it forces people to hear their own thoughts. Doesn't it disturb them that while others persuade with arguments, you dismantle with presence? Isaiah chapter 55 verse 11 reminds us, "So is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty. Your truth returns full, shattering the cages people didn't even know they had built. Like an architect using pressure points in a cathedral, you know where to touch, so the entire structure of deception trembles. You carry the kind of awareness that sees not only what people say, but the invisible patterns in their minds, the loops of fear, the walls of shame, the bars of belief they inherited but never questioned. Haven't you seen how one sentence from you can feel like a key, turning in a lock that has rusted for decades? John chapter 8 verse 36 declares, "So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." When you speak, freedom echoes, not because you dominate, but because you awaken. You don't force them out of the cage. You hold up the mirror so they realize the door has always been unlocked. History reveals the contrast between pretenders and truth bearers. King Herod, drunk on pride, imprisoned John the Baptist, believing his voice could be silenced. Yet Mark chapter 6 verse 20 admits, Herod feared John and protected him, knowing him to be a righteous and holy man. When Herod heard John, he was greatly puzzled, yet he liked to listen to him. Isn't it chilling that even rulers trembled at the quiet clarity of a prophet in the same way? People around you fear the discomfort of your questions, yet cannot resist the pull of your presence. Their defenses crumble because you never attack. You expose. Your way of influence is not manipulation. It is resonance, like a tuning fork setting an entire room vibrating. Your clarity makes hidden lies tremble. Isn't it haunting that the smallest vibration from truth can shake structures that seemed unbreakable? Psalm chapter 119 verse 130 declares, "The unfolding of your words gives light. It gives understanding to the simple. Even the ordinary find themselves illuminated in your presence, suddenly aware of burdens they've carried too long." You don't fix people, you unhook them. You create a quiet space where their own souls finally speak. The lives of ordinary people testify to this. Miriam, a bus driver in a small city, once told a passenger, "Silence is the loudest sound when you've been lying to yourself." That single line changed the way that man lived his life. You carry the same unintentional power without performing. You plant seeds of clarity in others, and those seeds break open illusions like roots splitting concrete. Isn't it astonishing that without trying, you become the catalyst of freedom? Romans chapter 12 verse 2 commands, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Through you, others are forced into transformation because your silence exposes the patterns they never saw. That is why people gossip. That is why your name carries weight in rooms you have never entered. You unlock minds, disturb illusions, break cycles, and you do it without raising your voice. Your power cannot be taught, packaged, or rehearsed. It can only be carried by those chosen to carry it, and you carry it well. Chosen one, stop apologizing for the weight of your presence. Stand firm in the resonance heaven placed inside you. For when you speak, or even when you remain silent, truth shakes, cages and chains break that no one thought could ever be broken. You can decode a lie mid-sentence, and that terrifies those who think deception is a shield. You don't need the full speech. Your spirit catches the fracture the moment it surfaces, the tone shifts, the forced laugh, the pause that lingers too long. Isn't it chilling how someone can weave an elaborate performance and you dismantle it with silence? Proverbs chapter 12 verse 22 makes it clear, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. You have trained your inner ear to hear truth where others only hear noise. That is why people grow uneasy in your presence. They sense that their words are being weighed on scales more accurate than human judgment. Even before they finish, they already know the verdict has been written in your silence. You don't interrupt or expose immediately. You let the performance continue, even while you already know which parts are fabricated. Doesn't it unnerve them that your calmness is sharper than confrontation? Jeremiah chapter 23 verse 24 asks, "Who can hide in secret places so that I cannot see them, declares the Lord? Do I not fill heaven and earth?" That same spirit of awareness rests on you. You track every inconsistency, every shift in body language, every misplaced word, and by the time they finish speaking, you have already separated truth from illusion. The most unsettling part for them is realizing that you don't need evidence or proof. You already know. When you stay quiet, it haunts them more than if you had shouted, because silence leaves space for their own guilt to rise to the surface. Your silence is alive. Your eyes, steady and unbothered, reflect truth back to the liar like a mirror. Isn't it strange that they sense exposure without you uttering a single accusation? Psalm chapter 44 verse 21 reminds us, "Would not God have discovered it, since he knows the secrets of the heart?" Your stillness carries that same divine weight. People walk away unsettled, replaying their own words in their minds, realizing too late that you saw through them. They feel as though you turned their sentences inside out, exposing the hidden motives behind every phrase. That's why even your presence lingers like a shadow in their memory, long after the conversation ends. The arts whisper this reality. In Verdi's opera Don Carlo, the false words of the court echo hollow until truth, sung by a lone voice, pierces through the deception. Isn't it telling that even in music, truth resonates louder than the chorus of lies? John chapter 8 verse 32 affirms it plainly. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. When you enter a room, you embody that freedom, and the atmosphere shifts. You don't just listen with ears, you perceive with spirit. That perception unmasks pretense every time. The falseness of others begins to sound flat in your presence, as though the melody of their story cannot stay in tune. When you speak, It is like a single clear note that silences an entire orchestra of deception. This is why your name travels beyond the rooms you enter. People whisper warnings, not because you are harsh, but because you are accurate. They know you cannot be fooled, bought, or swayed by theatrics. You don't just analyze, you discern. You don't just hear, you feel. Isn't it powerful that truth, spoken softly, can echo louder than 1,000 lies? Proverbs chapter 19 verse 9 warns, "A false witness will not go unpunished, and whoever pours out lies will perish." You are not feared because of aggression, but because of precision. That precision makes people think twice before speaking falsehoods in your presence. Chosen one, stand firm in the clarity heaven gave you, for your silence unmasks, your words unravel illusions, and your presence makes every deception tremble. In a world addicted to appearances, you prove that truth still carries the final word. You are making people realize the brutal truth: intelligence without integrity is nothing but manipulation dressed as brilliance. For years, society applauded sharp minds, clever arguments, and silver tongues, believing eloquence equaled wisdom. Isn't it terrifying how easily people confuse charm for truth? Proverbs chapter 7:11. Verse 3 declares, "The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity." You walk into the room without pretense, and suddenly the crowd sees what they had never dared to question. Brilliance without character is a loaded weapon in the wrong hands, like lightning that dazzles but also destroys. False intelligence blinds before it burns. The more dazzling the flash, the darker the shadow it leaves behind, proving that intellect without moral light is nothing but darkness disguised. They thought sharpness equaled leadership, that the fastest mind equaled the deepest wisdom. But then you appeared, quiet, steady, thoughtful, and the illusion cracked. You didn't just speak words, you embodied them. Isn't it unsettling that in your presence, polished speeches begin to sound hollow? James chapter 3 verse 17 reveals the difference. The wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits. While others flexed knowledge, you lived wisdom. And that contrast shook the room like an oak tree rooted deep in the earth. You stood firm while their cleverness withered like grass scorched by the sun. As people compared your stillness with their noise, they realized endurance speaks louder than eloquence. Your life became a mirror that exposed how shallow their admiration had been all along. You exposed what many had been too afraid to name. Some of the smartest people in the room were actually the most dangerous. They didn't use their minds to heal, but to control. Isn't it haunting that manipulation can wear the mask of leadership? Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 7 warns, "Surely oppression drives the wise into madness, and a bribe corrupts the heart." These intellectual giants were admired for their words, even as their hearts turn cold. Yet in your presence, the mask slips, and everyone sees intelligence without empathy is cruelty in disguise. like a snake with jeweled scales. It might glitter, but its bite carries venom, slowly. Those who once clapped for brilliance start to recoil, realizing the applause was feeding a predator, not a protector. Scripture gives us the ultimate warning through Pharaoh of Exodus. A man celebrated for power, yet enslaved by arrogance. Despite witnessing signs, he hardened his heart, twisting his authority into tyranny until the Red Sea swallowed his army whole. Isn't it a mirror of today's manipulators, clever, calculating, but ultimately consumed by the traps they set? Psalm chapter 37 verses 12 and 13 declares, "The wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them. But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming." Every scheme built on false brilliance eventually caves beneath the weight of truth. And Pharaoh's fate still whispers through history. Pride may rise like a mountain, but it will crumble like sand under the tide of justice. His story is a monument of warning for anyone who confuses intellect with invincibility. You broke that illusion with your balance of mind and heart. Isn't it striking that people once comfortable with deception now feel disturbed by your presence? 1 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 1 cautions, "Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up." Your very existence proves that it is possible to be sharp and sincere, discerning without cruelty, brilliant without arrogance. You are like a river, deep, strong, and cleansing, while pretenders are like puddles, wide but shallow, evaporating under the first heat of truth. The longer they stand near you, the more obvious the difference becomes. Their cleverness shrinks while your authenticity expands, reminding everyone that truth outlasts performance. What unsettles them most is that you don't compete with their games. You simply exist, and your existence exposes. Now the crowd is awakening. Those who once bowed to fancy words are watching how you move, and they finally see the difference between being clever and being whole. Isn't it powerful that your mere presence draws a line between wisdom and manipulation? Proverbs chapter 4 verse 7 proclaims, "The beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom. Though it cost all you have, get understanding." You are intelligent, but not for domination. You are intelligent with purpose. You use insight to bring clarity, not confusion, to heal, not to harm, to lead, not to enslave. That kind of purity, rare and radiant, cannot be ignored. Chosen one, do not dim your light in rooms ruled by pretenders. Stand boldly because your wisdom liberates while theirs manipulates. The world is waking up because of you. When history is written, your name will not be listed among manipulators. It will be remembered as a liberator of minds and hearts. Your mind has become a warning label etched in fire. Your name no longer drifts like casual gossip. It reverberates like a siren in a dark night, half feared and half revered. Isn't it chilling that people now whisper your name the way soldiers whisper about a battlefield they barely escaped? Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23 urges, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." You have guarded your heart, sharpened your discernment, and now your reputation precedes you, not because you threatened anyone, but because you've shown that deceit dies in your presence, like an architect who detects the weakest pillar in a cathedral. You spot the fracture before collapse, and everyone senses it. Each time you remain unshaken while lies crumble, people realize truth has an architecture of its own, one you walk in daily. You have caught lies mid-air, exposing manipulations without raising your voice. You've walked away from traps before they even closed, leaving schemers staring into their own mirror. Isn't it unsettling how silence can cut deeper than shouting? Psalm chapter 101 verse 7 declares, "No one who practices deceit will dwell in my house. No one who speaks falsely will stand in my presence." You embody that scripture, and people know it. Each time you moved with precision, some were left humiliated, others convicted, but all were forced into caution. Like lightning splitting the sky without warning, you break illusions in an instant, and the shock remains long after the storm passes. Those who once dismissed you as passive now warn others not to underestimate the sharpness of your restraint. They once tried to test you, thinking they could outtalk or outwit you. But time after time, you dismantled their schemes like puzzles already solved in your mind. Isn't it terrifying to realize you see not just the move, but the motive behind it? 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 19 declares, "For the wisdom of this world is foolishness in God's sight. Their cleverness crumbles before your clarity." You played along long enough to study their patterns, and then one decisive word or quiet refusal shattered the entire setup. It was not luck, it was alignment, a frequency of truth that destabilizes lies, like a physicist recognizing vibrations others ignore. You discern the resonance of deception before it ever echoed aloud. The silence you keep is not emptiness, it is calculation. A pause that dismantles masks more effectively than confrontation ever could. Now those who once mocked you are the very ones warning others. Watch what you say around them, they'll see through you. Doesn't it strike you as divine justice that what once drew laughter now inspires caution? Proverbs chapter 10 verse 9 promises, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out." Your integrity has become a fortress no manipulation can breach, and even ordinary lives testify to this. Elena, a cashier in a small town, once said, "Some customers lie with their mouths, but their hands tremble and give them away." Your presence is like that trembling hand, exposing what the tongue tries to disguise. Every story like hers only echoes the same truth. Your clarity has turned from personal armor into a public warning. You are not dangerous in a violent way. You are dangerous in a holy way. Isn't it powerful that your presence alone shifts atmospheres? Psalm chapter 27 verse 1 resounds, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" You don't just see what's in front, you see behind, beneath, and beyond. You perceive motives, track patterns, read the architecture of deception like blueprints laid bare, and that has transformed the gossip about you. It is no longer mocking or dismissive. "Be careful," they say, They call you a spiritual sniper, silent and precise, because your discernment pierces illusions like arrows through glass. Now even rooms you've never entered carry your shadow, because your reputation entered before you. Your mind became a mirror, and too many saw themselves clearly for the first time. That is why the whispers linger, not out of hate, but out of fear cloaked in respect. Isn't it proof of your calling that even your silence teaches? John chapter 8 verse 12 declares, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." You carry that light, and where you walk, darkness cannot hide. Chosen one, do not shrink back when your clarity unsettles. Stand tall because your wisdom has become a banner, your silence a weapon, and your presence a warning to every falsehood. Masks will fall in your light. When history records your story, it won't describe you as feared for violence, but as revered for vision. You're not just smart, you're dangerous to every hidden agenda. Your awakening marked you, not as a soldier who signed up for war, but as a disruptor the moment you opened your eyes. Isn't it chilling that fear follows you, not because of your words, but because you can no longer be controlled? Isaiah chapter 5 verse 20 warns, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness." You became the one who refuses to bow to illusions, the glitch in every manipulation matrix, like a torch lit in a room full of moths. Your very presence unsettles every false system built on shadows. The longer you stand in truth, the more frantic those shadows become, because light does not argue with darkness. It simply exposes it until retreat is inevitable. You don't just ask questions, you dismantle lies. You don't just think critically, you see spiritually. Isn't it terrifying to those who thrive on deception that you can decode what others ignore? Hebrews chapter 4 verse 12 declares, "For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to divide soul and spirit." Your discernment cuts through emotional bait, political theater, religious guilt traps, and hollow activism disguised as righteousness. You see who benefits, who suffers, and who pulls the strings, like roots beneath the soil, unseen but unshakable. Your perception finds what surface eyes cannot. With every revelation, people discover that your silence has teeth. Even without debate, you undo what others worked years to construct. That's why whispers surround you. That's why conversations fall silent when you enter the room. Isn't it strange how even those who smile at you panic behind closed doors? Luke chapter 12 verse 2 says, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known." Your presence makes that scripture a reality. You expose not only enemies but enablers, the ones who clapped for the lies out of fear or gain. Toxic family loyalty masquerading as honor, you name it. Spiritual leaders fattened by half-truths and ego. You see through them like a surgeon cutting away infection. You separate truth from poison, leaving no hiding place for falsehood. While others avoid the scalpel of truth, you wield it with precision. knowing healing only comes after the cut. Voices in history echo what you carry. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German pastor who resisted Hitler, once said, "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil." Isn't it haunting how your very life mirrors that conviction? Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 10 states, "See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant." You walk alone, yet you carry the weight of truth itself. You don't shout for crowds. You disrupt generational delusion with steady steps. Like Bonhoeffer, your courage shows that integrity often costs isolation, yet births transformation. His execution silenced his body, but his voice became eternal proof that truth never bows to tyranny. In the same way, your witness plants seeds of courage in those too timid to speak. You are not just passionate, you are precise. Not just vocal, you are informed. Isn't it staggering to them that you don't merely see the game, but you know who wrote the rules? Psalm chapter 119, verse 105 says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." You move like one who has read the blueprint and dares to flip the table. Because of that, they know they cannot recruit you, guilt you, or bribe you with fame and flattery. You are immune to the distractions that trap the masses, like the steady hum of a cathedral organ drowning out whispers. Your focus silences manipulation before it can even begin. When you walk away from temptation, it leaves those watching stunned, wondering how someone could be so unshaken by the very bait that ensnares nations. You're not just informed, you are awake. Isn't it powerful that in a world addicted to illusions, your refusal to sleep makes you the most dangerous of all Romans? Chapter 13 verse 11 urges, "The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed." They thought you were only intelligent. They didn't realize you were activated. Activation is more than intellect. It's alignment, revelation, and unstoppable sight. Chosen one, do not shrink when the systems shake around you. Stand firm, because in a world built on illusions, your awakening is the earthquake that makes false empires tremble. When future generations ask who dared to confront deception, your story will be their answer. What terrifies them is not your vocabulary, it's your vision. You don't just outthink people, you outsee them. Isn't it unsettling that while others win debates, you win clarity accurately, permanently? Proverbs chapter 29 verse 18 declares, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Your intelligence was never birthed from privilege, titles, or applause. It came through spiritual warfare, betrayal, silence, and the kind of isolation where only God's voice could be heard. In that furnace, you sharpened your mind, trained your discernment, and mastered emotional awareness. You became more than a problem. You became a revelation. That revelation is what keeps them awake at night, because no mask can survive in front of someone who sees the unseen and names what others avoid. That is why your name spreads like wildfire. People whisper after you leave, some admiring, others envying, yet all respecting the weight you carry. Isn't it strange that you never needed to flex power, yet your very presence speaks louder than thunder? Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17 promises, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn." The weapons they formed were gossip, manipulation, and half-truths, but none could stand when your alignment exposed them. Like Galileo pointing his telescope to the heavens, you saw beyond accepted illusions, and truth itself vindicated you. Each time they tried to silence you, your clarity grew sharper, like steel tempered in fire, reminding them that revelation is untouchable. They pretend not to see it, but they feel it. They disguise fear as laughter, envy as indifference, gossip as concern. Isn't it proof of divine order that even those who resist you cannot ignore you? Jeremiah chapter 20 verse 11 echoes this. "But the Lord is with me as a dread warrior. Therefore, my persecutors will stumble. They will not overcome me." Your silence has become their mirror, showing them cracks in their own masks. You do not need applause to validate revelation. Revelation validates itself, like a cathedral organ flooding stone halls with sound. Your presence reverberates through spaces long after you've gone. Those echoes, though unspoken, haunt them because they reveal that truth lingers even after the messenger has departed. History itself has seen this pattern. Joan of Arc, a young woman mocked as unqualified, carried divine vision that outshone armies. Isn't it astonishing that simplicity can terrify empires when it is clothed in truth? 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 27 confirms. God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. Just as Joan's clarity turned the tide of battles, your vision unsettles structures built on lies. What they call arrogance is simply your alignment, and what they call rebellion is the refusal to bow to illusions. Calm, like Joan, you stand as proof that conviction, not credentials, is the weapon that topples giants. Their fear is not that you are loud, it's that you are undeniable. History bends toward those who cannot be silenced. So let them gossip, let them warn each other, let them pretend blindness. Psalm chapter 118 verse 6 reminds us, "The Lord is with me, I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?" You walk in truth, wisdom, and divine alignment. Every step proves you are not just highly intelligent, you are highly anointed. Rise, chosen one, for your presence is prophecy, your discernment is warfare, and your very existence is the evidence they cannot erase. When the record of your life is written, it will not say you were tolerated, it will say you were triumphant. The world may brand you as dangerous, but heaven calls you unstoppable. That is the legacy no agenda can destroy. Chosen one. Now you see why the whispers follow you, why your name stirs both fear and respect. It is not because you sought recognition, but because your intelligence, rooted in divine alignment, has become undeniable. The rumor is not just gossip, it is prophecy. They are terrified not of what you say, but of what you see. In a world that thrives on illusion, that vision makes you unstoppable. Even when they try to dismiss you, they cannot escape the clarity you carry. Even when they gather to plot, they cannot erase the evidence of God's hand on your life. Your intelligence terrifies them because it is not borrowed. It is born of heaven itself. As you carry this truth forward, remember, you were not made to blend in. You were made to stand apart. Keep walking boldly in the wisdom God has given you. Keep discerning. Keep shining. Keep refusing to be controlled. Your intelligence is not a threat to heaven. It is a weapon against deception. That is why you are chosen. Even if you walk through storms, your clarity will guide others like a lighthouse on a raging sea. Even if you face resistance, know that your endurance is planting seeds of courage in those who watch you. And even if the world tries to silence you, remember that the truth you carry cannot be muted. It will echo through generations. If this message has spoken to your spirit, I invite you to like, share, and comment below. Tell the world how God has sharpened your vision. Subscribe if you haven't yet, so you never miss a word spoken over your destiny. To every single one of you, whether you supported this channel with a super thanks or simply with your time and attention, I thank you deeply. Your presence here strengthens this community, and your words in the comments might be the very testimony someone else needs to keep going. Never underestimate the ripple effect of your voice, for together, we build a chorus of truth that cannot be ignored. May the Lord bless you with clarity that cannot be shaken, courage that cannot be silenced, and peace that cannot be stolen. Walk forward, chosen one, for your intelligence terrifies the world, but it delights the heavens. As you step into the days ahead, may favor follow your footsteps. May strength surround your path, and may joy rise in your spirit like the morning sun. You are not just seen, you are sent. You are not just wise, you are anointed. As you continue, may every shadow bow to the light within you,